What was the lowest point in your life?
Well, just before I came here, I think when Pete was going with Edie Adams, and we were married, I didn't know it. And Carrie and I, my little girl, she was only then about 10, we were sitting on the bed, and Rona Barrett came on the air and announced that Pete was engaged to Edie Adams.
Oh.
Well,
that was a surprise.
Yeah, that really blew my mind. I tried to kill myself, and that's when, you know, people started to say very bad things about me. But, you know, I had been so strong, you know, supposedly all my life, and I really tried to be the strong person, but I broke. You know, I couldn't take any more. And that was meant to be, too, you know.
Yes, I guess if you had played weak, weepy women on the screen,
yes, it would have been okay.
They would have been okay. But since you were always, you know, cheery and buoyant and
strong,
lifted everybody else up.
Right.
You know, public reaction funny ways.
Well, even my own daughters, you know, resented when I wasn't the strong one anymore, the driver. They didn't realize it, but I saw it in their faces, you know. I was no longer in the driver's seat, you know. So that image had to be destroyed. And whether my daughters ever see me again, and I hope I want to see my grandchildren. I'd love to see Lindsay and Candy, but if I'm not supposed to, then I won't. But I hope that they can forgive me, you know, for becoming ill, which I did. I became very ill, and they couldn't understand it. Literally could not understand it. They were ashamed of me, and I don't blame them. I shouldn't have fallen apart like that, you know.
But they should have it in their hearts to forgive, too.
I hope so. Because I was I could understand how my daughters could not accept it or understand it. I was a total nightmare to them, and they couldn't understand that my heart was broken to pieces. There was nothing left. I didn't want to live, and I really tried. And if I hadn't gotten here, gee, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I wouldn't have made it, you know.
The best thing is that you have
see, they didn't expect me to be so super great here. These people, you know, took me in their homes, their little homes, and held me in their arms and kissed me and hugged me back to life. And that's New England, boy, and I'm never going to leave it. Thank you.
Minutes before 9 right now. Betty Hutton was one of the biggest movie stars of the 40s and the 50s. She starred in a number of movies, among them Annie Get Your Gun and Greatest Show on Earth. But then television came along, and things just started to go wrong in Betty Hutton's life. Pat Collins is here with an update this morning. We're looking forward to this. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. As you remember, 2 years ago, I went to Newport, Rhode Island to visit Betty Hutton. She had converted to Catholicism and was working at the rectory of Father Peter McGuire, trying desperately to put her life back together again.
And if I hadn't gotten here, gee, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I wouldn't have made it, you know.
The best thing is that you have
see, they didn't expect me to be so super great here. These people, you know, took me in their homes, their little homes, and held me in their arms and kissed me and hugged me back to life.
Those were difficult days for Betty Hutton. Although she had recovered from alcoholism and drug abuse, she had been separated from her children for 10 years and had never seen her grandchildren. But then the miracle she prayed for finally happened. She met her youngest daughter, Carrie, and last Christmas was reunited with her daughter, Lindsay, and her grandchildren after Lindsay made that first phone call to her mother.
And I went to the phone, and the voice said, Mom? And I just said, Lindsay! And I dropped on my knees, and I screamed, Father! And Father came running in, he thought something happened. I said, it's my daughter. She's calling me. So he talked to her first because I couldn't talk. And then when I could talk, we talked, and we talked for about 4 hours, and I cried, and she cried. Pat, it's the most wonderful thing.
You went for 10 years without talking to her. Why?
Well, because all the years before we broke, you know, were very difficult years, and I just couldn't handle the problem of the drugs, and I couldn't handle it. I was very young, and I was very frightened and very insecure, and she wasn't so crazy about my husband. So it was, you know, it was a very difficult time.
You have to remember, Pat, see, I was a very strong, powerful mother, and I held everything together from my mother, from my whole family. They all depended on me.
You wanted it all to be perfect.
Yes, I did. And so when a perfect mother snaps, they don't know what to do. Something really bad went wrong, you know? So it's not their fault. No one really understood what was really going on, the depth of it. Even I didn't know when it really began to happen. My career started to fall apart, and everything fell apart at once. And my mother was burned to death, and then I had no one to turn to. And I never tried to explain to them that I was under pressure and scared, and I had to take pills. I didn't have that much energy anymore. I was getting older. I was tired. How could they know? They didn't know what I was doing. They thought I was going crazy. They didn't know it was pills. They only know, as she says, drugs now. But they didn't know what I was taking. All they knew was I was getting crazy.
They were scared.
They're terrified. And then when they reacted badly to me, I just said, get out. Inside I was dying, but I wouldn't let them know. See, I was too proud to let them know that I really cared so much. I was a child emotionally because I had never been taught about life. From the time I was a little girl, my mother was a bootlegger. I was singing from 3 years. You know, I didn't know the softness of life. All I knew was you had to work for a living. Now I tried to give them a dream world to live in, and I literally did. So when I ripped the dream world from them, not consciously, but when it was taken from them, they couldn't cope. I couldn't understand why they suddenly couldn't understand that little girl that grew up in the garbage can. Why couldn't they look at me and say, my mother's suffering?
I didn't understand that Mother was saying, help me, because she didn't say help me.
No, I wouldn't.
She did things that were crazy that I couldn't put together. So it frightened me. And I was very insecure and very young, and I ran.
That first phone call, I'm just curious, what were the first things that you said to each other? What did you talk about after 10 years of not being
She
together?
told me, I didn't know you were divorced.
I didn't know.
didn't know?
No. I didn't know her father was dying of cancer at the time. It was Lindsay, it was the lowest ebb of Lindsay's life. Like I said, oh my God, if I'd only known she needed me so badly, I would have gone to her. And I'm sorry things are tough. He said, Betty, if things weren't tough for her right now, maybe this wouldn't come about. This is God's way of bringing you into the picture so that you can bring her up once more in that kind of strong love without faltering this time.
The first day you saw your grandchildren, what was your reaction?
You know, I'd never been a grandmother from the word go. You know, you walk in and here's a little girl 9 and 1 5, and they're looking at you saying, do you still take pills? Oh. So slow but sure, they understood me, and they love me. They really do. And I do a lot of things with them that I wanted to do with my girls when they were young, but I worked all the time. So I'm a much better mother and grandmother to them than I was to my own.
Carrie, how do you feel about what's happened to your mother over the last couple of years?
It's been really great to watch her progress, because when I lived with her when I was younger was through her hardest time. And it's a miracle to watch what's happened, you know. I never thought it would be as good as it is. I don't cry. I love you.
I love you too. This is such an emotional thing. I hope they're not embarrassed. They really love me, and what went wrong, I reiterate. It was me. I fell apart.
Betty has accepted Lindsay's invitation to move into her home in California. They're buying a larger house so Carrie can join them too. Betty spends her time now taking care of her granddaughters, Whitney and Courtney, but she has not forgotten the good people of Rhode Island who brought her back to life. She intends to continue to speak out against drug abuse in churches all over New England and plans to go back there to live one day. Meanwhile, happiness is in California, surrounded by people she loves.
What's so nice about, in fact, it's very funny. A lot of my friends and my co-associates at work keep asking me, how's it working? You know, because very few people really could live with their mother. And the reason it's working out is because I need her, she needs me, and the kids need both of us, and it's perfect. It's really, and plus, we have a lot of years to make up for it. So.
Betty, what's the most important thing about all of you being together now?
Well, that's the most important thing, that we're family, because there's no problem we can't handle.